My name is Ibrahim Traoré, and today I want to share with you one of the most important decisions in West African history, a choice that many predicted would lead to disaster, but is now proving them wrong in unexpected ways. On January 28, 2024, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger officially withdrew from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. At the time, international media labeled it reckless. Western diplomats said it was destabilizing, and former ECOWAS partners called it a mistake that would isolate us and destroy our economies. 9 months later, I am here to tell you what actually happened, why we took this path, what we have built since, and why the results are forcing the world to reconsider everything they thought they knew about African independence. This is not just about 3 countries leaving a regional bloc. It is about what happens when African nations choose sovereignty over convenience, and how that choice is shifting the balance of power across the continent. The road to this decision was not sudden. For years, ECOWAS functioned as more than a regional economic community. It became a tool for outside powers to maintain control over West African nations while hiding behind African institutions. The breaking point came in July 2023, when Niger experienced political change. Rather than seeking dialogue or understanding the concerns of the Nigerian people, ECOWAS imposed sanctions, threatened military intervention, and cut off essential supplies to one of the poorest countries in the world. What exposed the true nature of ECOWAS was not only its hostility toward Niger, but also its silence when leaders aligned with Western interests committed real violations of democracy. The double standard was undeniable. When Burkina Faso and Mali defended Niger's sovereignty and opposed foreign military intervention, ECOWAS began to treat us as obstacles rather than partners. That was the moment we realized we were not members of a genuine community. We were subjects trapped in a system designed to keep us in line. Our decision to withdraw was not taken lightly. For months, we tried to reform ECOWAS from within. We proposed changes that would make the organization accountable to its member states instead of foreign powers. We suggested solutions that prioritized African answers to African problems. Every proposal was rejected, every attempt at dialogue met with ultimatums. It became clear that the leadership of ECOWAS was more committed to serving external interests than the people of Africa. So on January 28, 2024, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger issued a joint declaration of immediate withdrawal. It was not just about leaving an organization. It was a declaration of independence from a system that had never worked in our favor. The reaction was immediate. International media portrayed us as reckless isolationists. Western diplomats predicted economic collapse, and ECOWAS leaders warned we could not survive without them. But we had a different vision. Instead of remaining junior partners in someone else's system, we chose to create our own, based on equality, mutual respect, and African priorities. Within weeks, we began building what is now known as the Alliance of Sahel States. This was not a reaction of defiance, but a proactive vision for a new kind of cooperation designed by Africans for Africans. The alliance rests on principles that ECOWAS abandoned: respect for national sovereignty, non-interference in internal affairs, and mutual defense against all forms of external aggression, whether military, economic, or political. Most importantly, the alliance placed emphasis on resource sharing and economic integration that directly benefits our people. Instead of exporting raw materials to foreign markets and then importing expensive finished goods, we began processing our own resources and trading with each other. The impact was immediate. In the first 6 months of 2024, trade between our 3 countries increased by 40%. Infrastructure projects that had been delayed for years under ECOWAS bureaucracy were finally completed within months. Military cooperation advanced rapidly, strengthening our security in ways that no external force had ever managed to provide. When we left ECOWAS, critics predicted disaster, economic isolation, currency collapse, trade disruptions, and an exodus of investment. But the reality was very different. Burkina Faso's economy grew by 4.9% in 2024 compared to 3% in 2023. Mali recorded 3.7% growth, and Niger achieved an impressive 9.8% growth rate. While ECOWAS member states struggled with stagnation, The alliance of Sahel states emerged as one of the fastest-growing regions in Africa. The numbers, however, tell only part of the story. The quality of our growth transformed as well. Instead of depending solely on raw material exports, we expanded into value-added processing, manufacturing, and services. Instead of growth that enriched foreign investors, we achieved progress that directly improved the lives of our citizens. In just 6 months, our discussions on a joint currency moved further than they had in 6 years within ECOWAS. Infrastructure integration projects moved swiftly from planning to actual implementation, while educational exchanges and cultural cooperation deepened in ways that the old system never allowed. Security was another area where critics believed we would fail. They warned that leaving ECOWAS would weaken our defenses and make us more vulnerable to terrorist threats. But the opposite has been true. The alliance of Sahel states has created the most effective counterterrorism cooperation in West African history. Without ECOWAS bureaucracy slowing down decisions, we can now coordinate military responses within hours instead of months. Without external interference shaping our security policies, we are free to design strategies rooted in local knowledge rather than foreign assumptions. Our joint operations have succeeded where years of ECOWAS and international missions had failed. We secured territories, protected civilians, and restored government authority in regions that had long been controlled by terrorist groups. More importantly, we have proven that African security challenges can be solved with African solutions when those solutions are not compromised by outside interests. And the diplomatic isolation we were warned about never materialized. The international community predicted that leaving ECOWAS would isolate us diplomatically from the rest of Africa and the world. Instead, something remarkable happened. Other African nations began quietly showing interest in our model. Leaders from across the continent asked about the alliance of Sahel states and whether similar arrangements could work in their own regions. Countries that had remained silent during our disputes with ECOWAS started engaging with us directly through bilateral cooperation. Even more surprising, global powers that initially condemned our decision began seeking direct relationships with the alliance. Russia, China, Turkey, and even some European countries recognized that the alliance of Sahel states represented stability and growth in a region where they held important interests. We were not isolated. We had become more relevant than ever, precisely because we had proven that independence and success were possible. What this experience has shown is something many African leaders suspected, but few were willing to test. Regional and international institutions that claim to serve Africa often work to limit its potential. ECOWAS presented itself as a tool for integration and development, but in practice it became a mechanism for maintaining external influence over African decision-making. Instead of strengthening sovereignty, it weakened it by making African nations dependent on external approval for their internal choices. By leaving, we did not become less African. We became more authentically African. We did not weaken cooperation. We created stronger, more genuine forms of partnership based on mutual interests rather than imposed frameworks. The success of the alliance of Sahel states has raised difficult questions for the remaining ECOWAS countries. While we achieved record economic growth, improved security, and reinforced sovereignty, many of them remain stuck with the same problems ECOWAS has failed to solve for decades. Some leaders have begun to privately admit that our departure forced them to reconsider their dependence on external powers and outdated regional structures. Others have started introducing policies that mirror our approach to resource processing and economic sovereignty. But the most powerful response has not come from governments. It has come from the people. Across West Africa, citizens are asking why their countries cannot achieve the same results that we have. They are questioning whether membership in ECOWAS serves their interests or the interests of others. The implications extend far beyond West Africa. Our successful exit has shown that African countries can choose independence over institutional membership and not only survive but thrive. It has demonstrated that African solutions to African problems are often more effective than frameworks designed elsewhere. Most importantly, it has shown other nations that they do not need to accept arrangements that fail them simply because they are presented as the only option. The alliance of Sahel states has become a model others are studying. In East Africa, discussions have begun about adopting similar approaches to cooperation. In Southern Africa, nations are reconsidering the nature of their partnerships with external powers. Even countries within existing regional blocs are now negotiating for greater autonomy and demanding respect for their sovereignty. I want to be honest about the personal cost of this decision. Leading Burkina Faso out of ECOWAS meant accepting responsibility for consequences that could have ended my presidency and damaged my nation's future. The international pressure was intense, the economic risks were real, and the security challenges were significant. Yet the rewards have gone beyond even our most optimistic expectations. Burkina Faso today is more prosperous, more secure, and more respected than it ever was as an ECOWAS member. Our people have more control over their own destiny. Our resources now serve our development priorities instead of external interests. Most importantly, we have proven to ourselves and to Africa that we are capable of making difficult choices and achieving successful outcomes without needing external permission or support. 9 months after leaving ECOWAS, the alliance of Sahel states has grown into something none of us fully anticipated when we made that decision in January. We created a free trade zone that allows commerce to flow without endless bureaucratic obstacles. We established joint educational programs that give young people opportunities to study and work across our 3 countries. We advanced currency cooperation that reduces dependence on foreign exchange systems. We built military partnerships that have significantly improved security for our populations. We developed agreements for sharing resources in ways that maximize the benefits of our natural wealth. We coordinated diplomatically to amplify our voice in international affairs. And above all, we demonstrated that African countries can cooperate effectively when the foundation is genuine shared interest rather than externally imposed structures. The success of our first year outside ECOWAS has given us the confidence to set even more ambitious goals. We are planning joint infrastructure projects that will connect our nations more effectively than anything achieved under the old system. We are designing educational exchange programs that will shape a generation of young Africans who think continentally rather than narrowly within national borders. We are working toward deeper economic integration that will create markets large enough to support advanced manufacturing and technology development. Most significantly, we are building institutions that serve African interests first, always, and exclusively. We are showing that African nations can govern themselves effectively when they are free from external interference, disguised as partnership. To my fellow African leaders who are watching the alliance of Sahel states with interest and perhaps with concern, I want to share what we have learned. Independence does not mean isolation. Choosing sovereignty over convenience does not mean choosing conflict over cooperation. Leaving inadequate institutions does not mean abandoning the values those institutions claimed to represent. It means taking responsibility for your own success, building partnerships based on true mutual benefit, and refusing to accept the limitations that others try to place on your potential. The alliance of Sahel states does not exist as a rejection of African unity. It stands as proof of what authentic unity can achieve when it is not compromised by external interference. And to the young people of Africa who are watching these developments, I want you to understand what our decision to leave ECOWAS represents for your future. It represents the possibility that your generation will not have to accept the constraints that earlier generations accepted. It proves that African nations can make bold decisions and achieve remarkable results. It shows that this continent has the resources, the talent, and the ability to build whatever future you decide to create. But it also comes with responsibility. The independence we have achieved requires your engagement, your skills, and your commitment to continue building on what we have begun. When we made this decision 9 months ago, we were told it was a mistake that would isolate us, weaken us, and eventually force us back into the fold with less bargaining power. Instead, we have shown that African nations can choose their own path, build their own institutions, and deliver results greater than anything externally designed systems ever offered. The alliance of Sahel states is not perfect, and our work is far from finished. We have demonstrated something many doubted: Africans can govern themselves effectively, cooperate successfully, and prosper independently when free to pursue their own vision of what the continent can become. To every African leader, every African citizen, and every friend of Africa watching this, our success belongs to all of us. It proves that the future we want for Africa is not only possible, it is already happening. The question is no longer whether Africa can succeed independently. We have already answered that. The real question is what you will do with the possibilities that our independence has created. This story is bigger than 3 countries or a single regional organization. It is about what happens when African people decide to take responsibility for their own success instead of accepting limitations imposed by others. It is about what becomes possible when Africans work together based on genuine shared interests, rather than externally imposed frameworks. If this story inspires you to think differently about Africa's potential, then share it. If it challenges you to demand more from institutions that claim to serve African interests, act on that challenge. If it strengthens your belief that Africa can build any future it chooses, then help build it. The alliance of Sahel states is only the beginning. What we have proven in West Africa can be replicated across the continent. What we achieved in 9 months can be expanded over years and decades to come. The future of Africa is now being written by Africans for Africans, and in African interests, and that future is far brighter than anything the critics of our independence ever imagined possible. 9 months after leaving ECOWAS, we have achieved economic growth, improved security, and strengthened sovereignty that validate every difficult choice we made. This is what happens when Africans decide to govern themselves without seeking external permission. And this is only the beginning.